and dangerous jungles of a long-forgotten island, a terrifying Tyrannosuchus stalks through an ancient forest. It may look like a dinosaur, but it is in fact a crocodilomorph, more closely related to the modern crocodilians. This beast is a result of a unique case of convergent evolution, evolving to look remarkably similar to the long-extinct Tyrannosaurus. This giant beast is always hungry and ready to swallow down anything it can catch, including any foolish humans who wander into its domain. With real-feel rubber skin and bone-crushing jaws, victims disappear into the Tyrannosuchus' stomach, where they can later be retrieved, just in time for another attack. Place an order now on the Reptimax website, www.reptimax.co.za, and secure this great beast before it's too late. Limited stock available, so get yours now.
Hello everyone, I am so excited to finally share a literal dream come true with you. I've made one of my favorite childhood creatures into an action figure, and it's now ready to be unleashed onto the world. My real feel rubber Tyrannosucus figure, which can swallow other figures whole. Before we take an in-depth look at my creation, I want to tell you a little bit about how this figure came to be and why it has the name Tyrannosuchus. If you would like to skip ahead to just the review, go to this timestamp. Later on, I will also show you how you can order one of these figures for yourself. When I first saw Peter Jackson's King Kong movie back in 2005, I fell completely in love with the Tyrannosaurus Rex, the terrifying descendant of Tyrannosaurus Rex, which in the lore of the film survived into modern day on the prehistoric island named Skull Island. This is not a real dinosaur species and was completely invented as a bigger and more scary T-Rex to go up against Kong in the film. It has such a striking and iconic appearance with crocodile-like skin and jagged misshapen teeth. I have always been crazy about this dinosaur and just love its design. I remember re-watching this movie multiple times in theaters as a child just to see the V.Rex scene again and again. I would also constantly play the movie's brilliant tie-in game on my PS2, where the V.Rex featured much more prominently. In the game, you would have to escape being eaten by the V.Rex while playing as a human, and fight multiple V.Rex as King Kong himself. The movie also had a brilliant toy line, and by far the most popular and sought-after creature of the line was the incredible Roaring Bull V.Rex action figure. This toy is literally a work of art. It's beautifully sculpted and also came with 3 small humans which it could swallow whole. There were also some other smaller V.Rex figures in the line which also sold out incredibly quickly. I remember just about all the V.Rex figures selling out and flying off toy shelves back in the day. Even to this day, any official V.Rex figures are extremely hard to come by and can fetch huge prices online. It's quite funny to think that the V.Rex actually turned out to be way more sought after than King Kong himself. To this day, the V.Rex is probably the most famous and fondly remembered character from Peter Jackson's movie. This dinosaur design would then go on to inspire the Indominus Rex of Jurassic World and the Giganotosaurus from Jurassic World Dominion, both of which also share the crocodile-like skin and teeth. I was lucky enough to be gifted one of the Roaring Bull V.Rex figures from my mum back in 2005, and this has honestly always been my favorite childhood toy growing up. I just about always had this figure by my side. I remember playing the King Kong game over and over with this beloved dinosaur sitting right next to me. I have always dreamed of making my very own V.Rex figure, and after I got lots of good practice sculpting and putting together my Mapusaurus, Rubigia, Mosasaurus, and Hatzegopteryx figures, I now finally felt confident to tackle the V.Rex itself. However, since the V.Rex is not an actual dinosaur and is completely fictitious, it is copyrighted by Universal Studios, meaning that I couldn't make a complete copy of this animal and will need to change a few things up to make something which is my own, which would also include giving this animal a new and unique lore separate from the movie. This would actually turn out to be so much fun, and my imagination went wild. I gave my version a new name and decided to call it Tyrannosuchus, which means the tyrant crocodile, instead of this animal being a species of tyrannosaur which survived into modern day. My version is actually not a dinosaur at all, and is in fact a crocodilomorph, meaning that this animal is actually more closely related to modern crocodilians and only looks like a tyrannosaur due to a unique case of convergent evolution. Convergent evolution is an endlessly fascinating phenomenon which occurs in nature when completely different groups of animals evolve along similar lines to fulfill similar roles in their environment. There are countless examples such as dolphins and ichthyosaurs, Thylacoleo and big cats, Gorgonopsids and saber-toothed cats, emerald tree boas and green tree pythons, just to name a few. In fact, this particular case of convergent evolution, where a crocodile relative has evolved a similar body plan to a predatory dinosaur, has actually happened. Way back in the Triassic period, Tyrannosuchus and its relatives evolved to walk bipedally and had a general appearance which looked very similar to theropod dinosaurs, despite being more closely related to modern crocodilians. So a crocodilomorph evolving to look similar to a tyrannosaur is definitely not out of the realm of possibility. Personally, I think this is way more interesting, thought-provoking, and likely than the V.Rex descending from tyrannosaurs that actually survived past the KPG mass extinction event. This could also explain why this animal also has so many crocodilian-like traits, such as its skin and teeth. My Tyrannosuchus evolved in the Cenozoic period, and like the V.Rex also lived on a mysterious, long-forgotten island. However, this island is more closely located to Madagascar, and is also inhabited by many other strange creatures, which have also evolved a similar body plan to dinosaurs and other prehistoric creatures, including carnivorous land hippos, giant heavily armored herbivorous crocodiles, giant gorilla-like lemurs, and sauropod-like hornless rhinos, all of which actually existed in real life. I'm having way too much fun with this. My Tyrannosuchus also differs from the V.Rex by having correctly orientated dinosaur-like wrists and a crocodile-like cloaca. Now let's have a look at the figure itself in its official packaging. For the Tyrannosuchus box, I wanted to try and create a similar nostalgic feel to the original Roaring Bull V.Rex packaging, with my own style mixed in. I decided to keep the vertical approach, which I think looks really interesting and is certainly different to most other dinosaur box designs, which tend to be more horizontal. For the box artwork, I drew several layers of this dark and mysterious jungle silhouette with different shades of light mixed in on a yellow sky. I think these colors with the jungle silhouette work really well for giving the feel of an old 1930s movie. I then drew 3 different Tyrannosuchus for the front and sides of the box, which mimic the 3 V.Rex that attack Kong in the movie. Just above the Tyrannosuchus on the front of the box, we can see a young and adventurous woman from New York who looks like she's about to fall into the jaws of this giant crocodilomorph. Speaking of people, we have 3 in total which are included in the packaging. They are located up here and are all able to be swallowed by our Tyrannosuchus. We have a nice big window here to view the figure, which looks like it's about to step out of a classic old movie. Towards the bottom of the box, we have my Reptimax logo and the name Tyrannosuchus, Tyrant Crocodile. Just above here we have 2 labels indicating that this is a handmade figure and that this was made in South Africa. The sides of the packaging have the different artworks which I mentioned previously with my logo just below. On the top of the box we have the jungle skyline and the name of this great beast. On the back of the box we have a nice big picture of the figure in its natural habitat. On the bottom right of the image, you can see a little illustration of how you clip the Tyrannosuchus's tail in, and how many little humans are also included. Please note that this is an adult collectible and not suitable for children. Below we have a description of Tyrannosuchus and a demonstration of how this figure can swallow the humans and how you can retrieve them from the belly. Lower down we have some extra information about myself and my business. We can also see my logo again along with the other labels I mentioned previously. Now let's get the Tyrannosuchus out of its packaging. This box is collector friendly and can easily be opened at the top. You then just need to lift the figure up and out. The figure is attached to a strong board backing which helps the Tyrannosuchus remain stable while being shipped. Then just cut these ties on the body and the crocodilomorph will be free. As you can see, this Tyrannosuchus has a clip-on tail. If you have seen my video on making the Mapusaurus, you will know that originally when I wanted to make my own dinosaur figures, I really wasn't a fan of giving my creations clip-on tails. I was aiming to create something more similar to the classic old Kenner Jurassic Park toys, which have beautiful continuous tails. However, I only realized after making the Mapusaurus that having a long continuous tail really makes shipping these figures so much more expensive. Even with the tail curled, the figure still had to be in a fairly lengthy box. So sadly, a clip-on tail is really the only option if I want more people to be able to afford the international shipping costs for my figures. Although I must admit, having a long tail that you can take on and off is really handy when traveling with this figure. What's really great about this tail is that you can remove it and reattach it very easily. However, there is a noticeable cut line here which may bother some people, but I have a solution. If you would prefer to rather glue the tail on and completely close up that gap, I can include a small tube of the glue I use with your order. You would just need to apply a small amount on both connecting parts and hold the 2 pieces together for about 2 minutes. Alternatively, if you would like to repackage your figure and display it inside its box, then you can just keep the tail as it is. I am so happy with how this figure turned out. This is literally a dream come true for me, and I can't tell you how excited I am. I'm so happy that this figure can comfortably stand all by itself. If you've seen my Mapusaurus video and the reviews of the figure online, you will know that it had to have a stand in order to stay up, but thankfully now those days are over. I have to give a huge thank you to my molder and caster Erica for this. She spent a lot of time and energy making some much stronger custom-made joints for my figures, and the results speak for themselves. She really has done an incredible job, and I'm beyond thrilled with what she has done. The legs can articulate at the hips and feel really nice and strong. You can also move the arms along with the giant jaws, and you can open the belly to retrieve swollen humans. The skin is highly detailed and has a rubbery real feel just like all my other figures. However, the Tyrannosuchus is a little more on the harder side. Normally Erica would cast our figures with a hollow cavity and fill up the empty space inside with foam, which gave our figures more of a softer real feel. However, this couldn't be done with the Tyrannosuchus, because this figure needed to have a strong inside throat and stomach cavity in order to swallow its human victims. I'm not exactly sure how Erica works her magic, but she said in this particular case we would have to cast the figure in solid rubber if we were going to have the stomach cavity, including the foam inside as well, while avoiding the throat and stomach would be too much of a nightmare. It was so much fun sculpting all these crocodile-like osteoderms running all the way down the neck and back. I remember sculpting each and every one of them, and it's so cool to finally see the end result. The coloration you see here is not final for the Tyrannosuchus. When I first start painting a new figure, it often takes me a few tries to get the colors just right. This version turned out to be a lot more blue than I expected, although a lot of people have said they really like it. What do you think? I haven't yet had the time to experiment more with the coloration to show you different versions in this video. However, once we've cast more, I'll post a little update video to show you on my channel, so keep an eye out for the next video. Taking a closer look at the head, we can see the tiny little orange eyes, which are very similar to the V.Rex's eyes. Just to let you know that the real Tyrannosaurus Rex, which the V.Rex and Tyrannosuchus are based on, actually had enormous eyes with excellent binocular vision. Despite what Jurassic Park would have you believe, T-Rex would have no trouble seeing you if you stood still, and actually had vision on par with an eagle. I'm getting a bit off topic, but I just felt like I needed to point that out. Now let's have a look at these enormous jaws. Just like the V.Rex, my Tyrannosuchus has very jagged interlocking teeth, and they are cast separately in an off-white color. The mouth is highly detailed and ready to snap down on any unfortunate victims. Just like the original roaring bull V.Rex, my Tyrannosuchus can swallow figures whole. Included with the figure are 3 little humans, consisting of a young blonde woman from New York, a person native to the island, and a sailor with a gun. Small human figures like this were included with just about all the figures from the original 2005 King Kong toy line, and were the prey of the roaring bull V.Rex. I created my own versions of these little people, however I didn't realize how incredibly hard it would be to sculpt at such a small scale. My first attempts looked so bad, and I just couldn't figure out how to sculpt something at such a small size. However, luckily I was able to find a solution. I found a little bag of army men at Toys R Us that were about the right size as the original little people. I then got to work cutting their limbs off and repositioning them. I had to make sure their arms and legs weren't positioned too wide, otherwise they wouldn't be able to go down the Tyrannosuchus's throat. I then beefed up their bodies and transformed one of the soldiers into a woman. Each person can be eaten and swallowed whole. Just pop them down the Tyrannosuchus's throat, then open the stomach flap to retrieve them. I would recommend being cautious with what other figures you may want to feed this giant crocodilomorph, as this figure is mainly just designed to eat these little people, and I haven't tested it with other toys, but I would certainly avoid anything too spiky that might eventually scratch the paint. Let's now take a look at the size of this figure. In terms of 1/18th scale figures, such as the Beasts of the Mesozoic and Mattel's Jurassic World line, my Tyrannosuchus is about the same size as a Tyrannosaurus Rex in this scale. When I first planned out this figure, I wasn't sure if I wanted to make it the same size as the V.Rex in the film, with being shrunk down to 1/18th scale taken into account. or rather make something similar in size to the original roaring V.Rex figure. I knew for sure that I wanted it to be larger than my childhood toy because I wanted it to look more powerful and impressive. Plus, I've always thought the roaring V.Rex is actually quite undersized, especially when compared to the large King Kong figures from the line. So I aimed for something large but not quite as massive as what a 15-meter V.Rex would be when made in 1/18th. I'm very happy with the size of this figure and I think it's just right. I also like to think that my Tyrannosuchus is much larger in its own universe when you see how big it is next to the included people. If you have some 1/18th scale human figures, you could make a little movie with the different size people, making it look like you have a younger and a larger adult Tyrannosuchus going after them. For some more size comparisons, here is the Tyrannosuchus with the fantastic Jurassic World lab lockdown T-Rex, the beasts of the Mesozoic Gorgosaurus, which is also blue, Fiona the awesome saltwater crocodile from Hasbro's G.I. Joe line, the beautiful Hammond Collection Spinosaurus. I've just recently reviewed this beautiful figure. It's my absolute favorite Hammond Collection figure. Here is the Tyrannosuchus with my Mapusaurus, which is the first figure I've ever made. The Supreme King Kong figure, which is a part of the original 2005 King Kong toy line. And finally, a comparison with the original Roaring Bull V.Rex, which is the inspiration behind it all, and one of the other smaller V.Rex figures from the King Kong line. If you would like to order one of these figures for yourself, just head over to my website www.reptimax.co.za. Once in the website, click on Shop and scroll down until you find the Tyrannosuchus or any of my other figures that you are after. Then click on Order Now and you will be directed to my Contact Us page. Once on this page, please fill in the necessary information and select which figure or figures you want. Then click on Submit and I'll get back to you as soon as possible with a shipping quote to your area along with a secure payment method. We are doing something new for the Tyrannosuchus and introducing pre-orders. The Tyrannosuchus figure is officially releasing on the 1st of October, so get your order in now to secure your very own figure. Just like with my previous releases, you can order the figure with or without the official packaging if you are on a budget. I really can't tell you how happy I am to have made this figure and for this dream to come true. The V.Rex made such a huge impact in my childhood, and it just feels so good to honor this creature design and create my own version of this animal. Although I had so much fun sculpting and making my Tyrannosuchus, I don't think I'll make more figures of fictitious dinosaurs in the future. I believe it's quite important to rather focus my time and energy on real creatures that actually existed. I really want to bring more light to lesser known prehistoric species and try to depict them in the most scientifically accurate way possible. I can't wait to share all the animals I've been working on with you. Keep an eye out for the Hatzegopteryx figure, which should be my next figure to release. If you want to stay up to date with my work, please check out my social media. If you would like to see more behind the scenes content, more of my artworks and sneak peeks at my upcoming releases, please consider supporting me on Patreon. Just like Sam Allred, thank you so much for your support. I would also like to give a big thank you to Spinzo. He is a fellow South African YouTuber who surprised me when he made some custom sound effects for the Tyrannosuchus. I've included some of his sound effects in the background ambience of this video. It's so awesome to see that someone already likes the Tyrannosuchus idea and went to so much trouble to make unique sound effects for this giant crocodilomorph. I am truly honored. Please check him out. He has also reviewed my Rubigia figure. I hope to see you again soon.